When I refer to the term no confidence, am I A, referring to Edmonton Oilers fans having no confidence in Stuart Skinner? B, having no confidence myself that Stuart Skinner will be an Edmonton Oilers player past this season? Or C, am I referring to the play last night that led to the Flames' third goal, ultimately how they sealed up a 4-3 eighth round shootout win? D, hey, there is a D. Am I talking about the same play, but from Evan Bouchard's perspective? Or E, all of the above? Friends, it took one game for my bold proclamation following Connor McDavid's signing at the beginning of this week, not in the instant reaction live stream out of the car, but in the follow-up video later that night, talking about how goaltending is now the biggest challenge to tackle for the Oilers following Connor McDavid signing that extension. It took one night for that to become the front and center conversation in oil country. This evening here on Dolynny TV, thanks for being aboard. We dive into it. Stuart Skinner, is this season the end of Stuart Skinner in Edmonton? Well, we're going to weigh some options. We're going to talk about some other goalies. And we're going to go on to talk about the lost runway of Stuart Skinner and the Oilers, losing their runway day by day to win a Stanley Cup. What we know last night is the game did not go our way. And it's easy to throw players and plays under the bus when things don't go your way. Trust me, I get that. But for, a long while, I've defended a lot of Stuart Skinner. And tonight we're going to maybe flip the coin on that conversation I normally have about give him time. And we'll talk about how, I don't know, right? I said it on Monday. I don't know how long the Oilers can hold out without upgrading the goaltending. And Calvin Pickard, generally speaking, isn't the problem in Edmonton. So, with that, if you're new to the channel, friends, I'd encourage you right now to consider hitting that subscribe button. It's been a busy week here on the channel, and it's only going to get busier as we get into the weekend. The ALCS, the Blue Jays advanced, beating the Yankees in 4 games in the ALDS. That's coming up here. And of course, the Oilers face the Canucks Saturday night, in which should be the first start of the season for Calvin Pickard. Now, that said, full disclosure, I have not had enough of a day to catch up on the news of the day, so whatever's relevant, whatever's not relevant, it don't matter. But here's how I feel, here's what I think, and here's where I think we're headed. So let's get to it, friends. Stuart Skinner enters another post-game press conference saying he's got to be better. Stu has done that for about 3 years now. And after being thrust into the starter's role on a ill-advised gamble on a $5 million 5-year contract for Jack Campbell by the Edmonton Oilers, Stu handled the pressure mostly throughout the regular season that year pretty well. Playoffs come around, things don't quite go his way. He's young, he's got to be better. I get it, I understand. Then the next year, not as great of a year from Stu. We'll dive into the numbers later, but still, going into the playoffs, maybe he learned from last year. It was an adventure and a half that ended in Game 7. Not necessarily Stu's fault in Game 7. Again, I'm going to defend him there. I'll stick to my guns there. But again, a result that doesn't win the Oilers a Stanley Cup, as Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl's contracts start coming due. Last year, disaster class. Pickard was better and still equally as bad. That is where we're at. Is simply the team seemed to have a little bit more jam playing in front of Pickard, but his numbers relative to Skinner's were not vastly different. So, you look at it there from an Oilers fan perspective, goaltending year over year over year is either mediocre or getting worse. Enter this year's preseason. For Stuart Skinner, a year where he drops a lot of weight, looking to keep the joints healthy as he ages, keep going longer in his career. Under a new goalie coach, things should look good. Mostly, the goaltending in the preseason, specifically outside of Calvin Pickard, was pretty meh. Fair enough. It's preseason. We can get over that. Enter Game 1. Wednesday night, October 8th. Season opener at home against the Calgary Flames. Should be a big game. Oilers get up 3-0. And then the Oilers Oiler. And this is where I will fill in the blanks for a couple people. We're missing Hyman. We're missing Wallman. Two pretty big key pieces. Those guys each make over $5 million a year for the Oilers. So fair to say, you're missing a couple of key pieces. I get it. It hurts. Would they have been the difference against the Calgary Flames? Well, Tomashek looked pretty good up there on that top power play unit. And the Oilers were dangerous offensively all night. You know, the Oilers, against any other team, as I said in the post game, the nightcap last night, which is a new thing I'm branding here. As I said, Dustin Wolf and Sergei Bobrovsky are the only two goalies in the entire NHL that could have held the Oilers to 3 goals last night. You know what? Big whoop if you don't like Dustin Wolf because you're an Oilers fan and he's a Flame. The kid's great. Full stop. There's nothing else to add there. All right. Problem is you're up 3-0. That should be good enough to win the hockey game midway through and the way the Oilers were playing. Now, a lot of the reports, again, I buy into the Battle of Alberta as a swing of momentum and just simply execution when it matters most. Everybody said the Oilers were alive in the first half, Flames were alive in the back half. That's the Battle of Alberta. It's a wave. We ride it. That is not why the Oilers lost last night. The Oilers, just sometimes don't seem to have it break their way. And every hockey team, every hockey fan can claim that themselves. That's great. Have a nice night. But, you get a really weird bounce, a pass to the slot that somehow does a hard, 45-degree angle back the other way between the pads of Skinner into the net. Shake it off. You're fine. You're up 3-1. That is where the game was lost. Because, simply put, Stuart Skinner has never had, outside of maybe a few brilliant moments, the ability to recover from something that's either outside of his control or something that rattles you just from a what the heck just happened standpoint. And that goal that bounced off Noah Phillips' skates and into the back of the net from the angle that puck came from originally is one of those moments. And it was the demise of the Oilers last night. Quite simply, the Flames gain life. The Oilers, start slacking off a little bit. Maybe not playing as sharp. Great. But somebody has to steady that ship. Typically, teams look to their goaltender for that. And Stuart Skinner, throughout his career, has never been the guy necessarily to right the ship in that moment. So, enter a second goal, which even Flames commentators say it's a suspect high stick possibly. But so what? You're up 3-2. Get back to work. Score the next one. You're up 2. Finish the game. It's that simple. The problem is, again, you just need steady Eddie play from Stuart Skinner. But he's rattled on 2 weird goals. And, the Oilers have a lot of those weird goals happen. I get it. It sucks. How did that happen again? But that is where we go to how I started this video by simply saying the confidence. No confidence. Flames Radio explained it to me, an Oilers fan, the best way you possibly could. And that has got to be probably the worst part of this. Fan 960, the morning commentary crew, heavily blamed Bouchard for the third Oilers goal against due to a situation where neither him nor Skinner had confidence enough to take care of that puck rolling back with a checker bearing down. Simple play in hockey, dish it off to the corner, Bouchard moves it out, it's done, you're up 3-2, roll on, maybe score a goal. 100%. I can't even say the Fan 960 is wrong. That is the hard part about this one tonight, is the Fan 960 at 7-something o'clock starts my day by saying the Oilers, two heavily relied on players, didn't have confidence to handle a rolling puck back to the goaltender with a little bit of pressure. Again, I don't want to, use Bouchard as the scapegoat to stop blaming Skinner so much. But what should happen there, as Fan960 explained, is Bouchard shouldn't skate right back to the goaltender with his back turned to the checker and force Skinner to hurry that play so Bouchard has room to make a play himself. He should have peeled off, Skinner just easily glides it with his blade over into the corner where Bouchard is. You transition the puck up the wall and you're out. Simple. I go back and watch that play and tell me I'm wrong. I don't need to watch it to understand exactly where the Fan 960 is going. But the Oilers simply have given Stuart Skinner the runway to understand those plays, and they still don't happen. Instead, you've got Skinner in the post-game interview talking about how he just needs to learn from it. Easy, make a quicker play and it's done. It's great. But that was 3 years ago that we should have learned that, right? So frustrating. Absolutely frustrating. Now the problem is, this video actually doesn't do anything to solve the problem. It only adds to the problem. And that is the worst part about doing this video tonight, is the problem I see with how this ends. The end of Stuart Skinner in Edmonton, most likely to me anyway, I am just piling on. And that, I don't know. I don't know how I should feel about that once I say that out loud. Because Stuart Skinner's lost his runway because the Oilers are losing their runway. There is a 3-year window here with a ton of cap space coming up next year where the Oilers must win. Connor McDavid mandated it. So, you've got Stuart Skinner, who year by year by year continues to get worse. Kind of, according to these numbers. My man just played his first 10,000 games in the NHL, just capped it off last night. Not bad. Took him 175 games. Pretty impressive. And, he's 2 wins away from 100 in his career. It's not like he's the worst goalie in the NHL by any of these metrics we've ever seen. The fact is, he's never even lost 20 games in regulation in a season. This is possibly the most confusing part of Stu Skinner, is we absolutely are willing to run him out of town for this exact page here, despite really looking at that body of the work. Never a 3.0 goals against average. Never a save percentage below .890 outside of one game on this year, which I guarantee will not rot at .864 over 50 starts. It is mind-boggling. But it is, again, as we started this video off, the confidence. Stu, when he's on, like he was in the first period of last night's hockey game, incredible goalie. He can pitch a shutout in the most clutch moments. Stu, when he can't recover from a bad bounce or a bad goal against himself, the confidence shatters and the earth caves in. It's tough. It's hard to watch as an Oilers fan, and it's an all too already well-written story. So, do you have confidence that there can be a rebound on that .896 and .281, the worst numbers of his career in both categories? 100%, I feel like he can. And all the fancy stats would elevate because of that as well. I get it. I understand it. It'd be awesome. New goaltending coach, that should solve everything. Are we going to judge one game where he gives up 3 goals in 65 minutes? Despite an .864 save percentage, has a better goals against average than last year's average after one game, and it's a loss? No. But the problem is, we are on a crossroads here. The runway is gone. The Oilers need confident goaltending night in, night out. And it ain't coming from Stu Skinner. It still could. I'm not saying it can't, but it's not. It hasn't for pretty much the duration of his time here. Again, the full first 2 years, I'm going to give him a free pass because of the situation of which to how he got here. Stuart Skinner did not get here because he set out in his rookie campaign after 13 games in the show the year before to be the starter that year. That was not the plan. That was not at all the plan. I called it. I called it in the video talking about signing Ville Husso or Jack Campbell earlier that year. That doesn't make me feel any better about how this all transpired. So that leaves us with a couple of options about how this shakes out. And there's a reason that one's at the top. Because end all be all here, Stuart Skinner, despite what everybody will say about him, is not the worst goaltender in the world. Y'all probably felt the exact same way about Devan Dubnyk in his last final few months here. And I guarantee if you listen to enough Ask Doobie over on Oilers Nation, that's probably been brought up multiple times. So, a guy can only take so much BS, so many things hurled his way, whether it's you at work from your coworkers, whatever the case might be, you at work from customers, if you're customer facing, whatever. Skinner's going to get sick of this at some point. And there is only one way to get a fresh start. When you need a fresh start, you need out. Fair enough. It sucks. But I 100% would understand it. I wouldn't want to play in a market where every night I start, everybody thinks, we could be doing better by having somebody else in the net, right? So that leaves us, with another option here. The Oilers could ultimately just lose him for free on waivers if somebody finds a way to claim him. Or, two, just cut him to the AHL like we did Jack Campbell and play out his contract here the final year and move on next year. In comes Connor Ingram. I think we could do that. That seems like a reasonable option. We've done it before. There's some history there. That also said, Skinner has a great season from here on out. One game, one bad goal against, and we're in hysteria. We very well could see a career year from Stuart Skinner from here. There is nothing saying it can't happen other than pretty much everything we've watched for the past 3 playoff runs in 2 years. But it could happen. Stranger things have happened. The Oilers, at the end of the day, are one of the hardest teams to understand from an everyday fan perspective. That said, who's going down for Jack Roslovic? Goalies. Who? Well, who replaces Skinner if you get rid of him? Connor Ingram, I think, is a pretty shoe-in fit, kind of similar to Cal Pickard a couple years ago, right? I think that one makes sense, doesn't it? Right? Connor Ingram got him for free, and he's just sitting in the minors, trying to get his head right and get back up to the NHL. Yeah, if you get rid of an NHL goaltender, he makes sense to come up. I get it. Got it. Good. Cal Pickard, you run Ingram and throw Pickard out there as the starter, ease Ingram in. Maybe he gets hot later in the year, but Pickard had an incredible playoffs and an incredible preseason for the most part. And you just ride a veteran goalie who happy to be here. Glad to do the job for you. Thanks for having me aboard. Sure, you could do that. 100% you could. One name that I believe, and it's been rumored a million times over the past 5 years, but one name that this year likely, if the situation last year repeats itself for the Oilers goaltending department, I would assume Ilya Sorokin becomes this year's John Gibson. We all remember, don't we? John Gibson, not such a good night for Detroit tonight, but Ilya Sorokin very well becomes the heavily most rumored goalie coming to Edmonton this year. Cap, be damned. Who cares? We'll make it work. Whatever. It's fine. It works. Now, we're one game into the NHL season. If every other team's panicking, we'd know some other names. We're just a bunch of, as they say, we got nothing better to obsess about than hockey up here. So, we'll find some other options later. That'll happen. I can vouch for that. That feels legit. So let's move forward to, is that really? Oh, that's the end of my graphics. There we go. So I guess let's move forward to summarizing this. Do you yourself, after 20 minutes of me discussing this with you, have the confidence that this is not the end of Stuart Skinner in Edmonton? Because the runway's gone. The Oilers need to upgrade on goalie. We know that. Whether it's Pickard or Stu or both, the Oilers need that guy that has the confidence, the swagger, the ability to get the job done, where 2 goalies we've had haven't gotten the job done. 3 if you count Campbell against Vegas. Haven't gotten the job done in 3 playoff runs. Do you have the confidence that these guys can do it? Stu specifically? Or is there no confidence left to be had here in oil country after 1 game? But a lot of history. Friends, that's where I'll leave it to you in the comments section below tonight. Thank you for being aboard again. I will close on, as the camera of course glitches out, classic, on possibly hitting that subscribe button for me. That'd be greatly appreciated. Easy and free to do. At the end of this video here, you're going to see some videos pop up, the playlist so far from this regular season coverage. You're going to see the Toronto Blue Jays coverage here on Dolynny TV pop up, and the Oilers Fanatic as well. I encourage you to click on one of those videos, scroll with your TV remote, whatever you got to do to make it happen. Carry on. There is a ton to talk about around this Oilers team, ton to talk about the Blue Jays as well as we get on to Friday tomorrow. Thanks for being aboard. I am up on, out of here.